Chapter 25. How Amadis and Galer knew of this great treason, and took counsel to procure, if they could, the liberty of the king in Oriana. Amadis and Galer were within 2 leagues of London when they saw Ardan the dwarf coming towards them as fast as a horse could gallop. "Never trust me," quoth Amadis, "if he comes not with the news of some great mishap to seek us." Presently the dwarf came up and related all his tidings, and how Oriana was carried away. "Holy Mary, help me!" cried Amadis. "Which way did they take her?" "By the city is the nearest road." Amadis immediately spurred his horse and galloped amain towards London, so confounded with the terror of this news that he never spoke a word to Galer, who followed him at full speed. They passed close by the town without stopping a minute. Only Amadis inquired of all he saw which way the princess had been taken. But as Gandalin passed under the windows where the queen and her ladies were, the queen called him, and he threw the king's sword to him, which was the best sword that ever knight girded on. "Take it to your master," quoth she, "and God speed here with it. And tell Galer that the king went from hence with a damsel this morning, and is not yet returned, and we know not where she has led him." Gandalin took the sword and rode as fast as he could after Amadis, who coming to a brook, missed the bridge in his hurry, and forcing the horse to leap, the tired animal fell short into the mud. Then Gandalin came up to him and gave him the sword and the horse which he himself rode. Presently they turned aside from the road to follow the track of the horsemen, and there they saw some woodmen, who asked if they came from London. For if knight and a damsel be missing there, they said, "We have seen an adventurer," and they told them what they had beheld. "Who is it that has taken them?" quoth Amadis, for he knew that it was Luzart by the description. They answered, "The damsel who led the knight here called loudly for Archelaus, Lord God," quoth Amadis. "But let me find that traitor." The woodman then told them how the party had separated, and said that one of the 5 knights who went with the damsel was the biggest knight they had ever seen. Amadis knew that was Archelaus, and bidding Galer follow where the king went, he spurred on after Oriana. By sunset the horse could carry him no farther, and he, being greatly distressed, saw a little to the right of the road a knight lying dead, and a squire by him holding his horse. "Who slew that knight?" cried Amadis. "A traitor that passed by, carrying the fairest damsel in the world by force, and he slew my master only for asking who they were. And here there is no one to help me remove the body." "My squire shall help you. Give me your master's horse. I promise to give you 2 better in return." He told Gandalin to follow him after the body was disposed of, and galloped on. Towards daybreak he came to a hermitage in a valley, and asked the hermit if he had seen 5 knights pass carrying with them 2 damsels. "Do you see that yonder castle?" he replied. "My nephew tells me that Archelaus the enchanter is lodged there, and with him 2 fair damsels whom he has taken by violence." "By God, the very villain I seek!" "He hath done much evil in this land," replied the hermit. "God remove him or mend him." Then Amadis asked him if he had had any barley for his horse, and while the horse was feeding, inquired who was the lord of the castle. "Grumen," said the good man, "cousin to Dardan, who was slain in Luzart's court, and therefore the king's enemy put up there." "Now God be with you, father," quoth Amadis. "I beseech you remember me in your prayers. Which way to the castle?" Amadis followed the path which the good man had pointed out, and came up to it, and saw that the wall was high and the towers strong. He listened, and could hear no sound within, and that pleased him, for he knew that Archelaus had not gone forth, and he rode round and saw that it had only one issue. Then he retired among some crags, and dismounting, stood holding the bridle, and with his eyes fixed upon the gate, like one who has no will to sleep. By this the morning broke, and he removed farther across the valley to a hill that was well wooded, for he feared that if those of the castle saw him, they would suspect that there were others at hand, and therefore not come out. Presently the gate opened, and a knight came out, and went to a high eminence, and looked all round, then returned into the castle. It was not long before he saw Archelaus and his 4 companions come out, all well armed, and among them Oriana. Ah, God, quoth he, now and forever help me in her defence. They drew near him, and he heard Oriana say, Dear friends, I shall never see thee more, for I go to my death. The tears came into his eyes. He descended the hill as fast as he could, and came after them into a great plain, and then cried, Archelaus, traitor! It becomes not one like thee to carry away so excellent a lady. Oriana knew the voice and shook all over, but Archelaus and the others ran at him. He took his aim at Archelaus, and bore him right over the cupper, then turned his horse and smote at Grumon, so that the point and part of the stave of the spear came out at his back, and he fell down dead, and the spear broke in him. Then he drew the king's sword, and laid about with such rage and violence, and felt such strength in himself, that he thought if the whole plain were full of knights, they could not stand before him. We are scoured, quoth the damsel of Denmark. It is a fortunate knight. Look at the wonders he performed. Ah, God protect thee, dear friend, cried Oriana. None other in the world can save us. The squire who had her in his keeping, seeing what had passed, cried out, Certes, I shall not wait till these blows come upon my head, which shields and helmets cannot resist. And he put the princess down, and rode off full speed. By this Amadis had cut through the arms of another, and sent him away howling with the agony of death. And he cleft a third down to the neck. The fourth began to fly, and Amadis was after him, when he heard his lady cry, and looking round saw that Archelaus had mounted again, and was dragging her up by the arm. Amadis soon came up to them, and lifting up his sword, dared not put forth strength, lest he should slay them both. But with a half blow he smote him on the shoulder, and cut away part of the cuirass and skin. Then Archelaus let Oriana fall, that he might escape the better. Turn, Archelaus, cried Amadis, and see if I be dead as thou hast reported. But he in fear of death spurred on, and threw his shield from off his neck for speed. The blow made at him just reached his loins with the sword end, and fell upon the horse's flank and wounded it, so that the beast rode away more furiously. Amadis, albeit he so hated the enchanter, did not pursue him further, lest he should lose his mistress. He turned towards her and alighted, and knelt before her, and kissed her hand, and saying, Now let God do with me what he will. I never thought to see you again. She, being among the dead, was in great terror, and could not speak, but she embraced him. The damsel of Denmark, going to hold his horse, saw the sword of Archelaus on the ground, and admiring its beauty, gave it to Amadis. But he, seeing it, was right glad thereof, for it was King Perian's sword, which had been placed in his cradle, and which Archelaus had taken when he enchanted him. Presently Gandalin came up, who had travelled all night long. A joyful man was he, seeing how the quest had ended. Amadis then placed Oriana upon the damsel's palfrey, while Gandalin caught one of the loose horses for the damsel, and taking her bridle, they left this place of battle. But Amadis, as they went along, reminded Oriana how she had promised to be his. Hitherto, said he, I have known that it was not in your power to show me more favor than you did. But now that you are at full liberty, how should I support disappointments without the worst despair that ever destroyed man? Dear friend, quoth she, never for my sake shall you suffer, for I am at your will. Though it be an error and a sin now, let it not be so before God. When they had proceeded about 3 leagues, they entered a thick wood, and about a league farther there was a town. Oriana, who had not slept a wink since she left her father's house, complained of fatigue. Let us rest in that valley, said Amadis. There was a brook there, and a soft herbage. There Amadis took her from her palfrey. The noon, said he, is coming on very hot. Let us sleep here till it be cooler, and meantime Gandalin shall go bring us food from the town. He may go, replied Oriana, but who will give him food? They will give it him for his horse, which he may leave in pledge, and return on foot. No, said Oriana, let him take my ring, which was never before so useful. And she gave it to Gandalin, who, as he went by Amadis, said to him, He who loses a good opportunity, sir, must wait long before he finds another. Oriana laid herself down upon the damsel's cloak, while Amadis disarmed, of which he had great need, and the damsel retired farther among the trees to sleep. Then was his lady in his power, nothing loth, and the fairest damsel in the world became a woman. Yet was their love increased thereby, as pure and true love always is. When Ganelon returned, the damsel prepared the food, and though they had neither many serving men nor vessels of gold and silver, yet was that a sweet meal upon the green grass in the forest.